Yep, it is recording. All right. So that's kind of usually in the upper right with these Zooms, it says it's recording. This is going to be, we're going to push this out to our DeadThree channel. And this is an idea we had as we're all quarantined and dealing with this pandemic. I do have a few YouTube channels here, but I was thinking last night about watching some film and kind of going through some of the things that the group that I coach and work with is a group here in the St. Louis area called DeadThree, and this will be posted to a DeadThree channel. And as I was kind of going through this, I got a text from Coach Gerdeman, who's the head basketball coach at Lindenwood, the Division II school here in the St. Charles area. And he sent a note to me, and I ran this idea by him. And we both have, I think, a fair amount of time on our hands right now to get together and watch a little basketball together. And I just randomly pulled up a game. But Coach Gerdeman, I appreciate you reaching out to me to, I guess, talk ball and see what each other's up to and all that. So you just finished your first year. I know your story, but people that are listening may not. But you just finished your first year at Lindenwood, right?
Yeah. We just finished up year one, and obviously had our postseason workout plans cut a little bit short with everything that's going on. But I thought it was a good year. Good year to build a foundation and get some solid things accomplished. I'm excited about moving forward.
Yeah. So and then you spent. I'm going to get these numbers right, but you spent 7 or 8 years up in Michigan in the Mount Pleasant area at Central Michigan as an assistant for Coach Davis. Was that right? 7 or 8 years?
7 years. Yeah. 7 years we were there. Yeah.
7 years. And you do have strong ties and roots in the St. Louis area, right? You went to high school.
Yeah. I grew up in Wright City, Missouri. And then, went to school at East Central Community College after that, and Southeast Missouri State, and then coached junior college around the state at Mineral area in Moberly. Coached at East Central for a couple of years when they still had a program, and then bounced around. Went to Southeast Missouri State back again as an assistant coach before we went to Central Michigan, and that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, well, I know, speak for a lot of people in the area that have gotten to know you and your family and your children. We couldn't be happier that you're there. It was his son Carson plays for our DeadThree group, and it's been it changed our program, our little basketball program that we have. But more than anything, you have great children and you're a great family, and you just enhance everything we're doing in terms of just great families, great culture, great people, really looking out for the kids and making sure that they are surrounded by other outstanding kids. And so it's been, it was a great year for us having you all move into the area.
A good group of parents and a fun group of kids. We've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. So it's one of these things, I spent some time coaching and was fortunate at a young age doing my undergrad. I was essentially just a manager at the University of Utah for Coach Rick Majerus, and spent some time there. And essentially all that involved was me breaking down a lot of film for him and taking a lot of notes for myself. But I remember him specifically that first summer telling the campers that he had, and he took his summer camp actually real serious, and he was present at every event, and every day he was there the whole time. But I remember him telling the 350 kids at one of these sessions that there's nothing more important in your life than the friends that you choose to have in your life. And I always took that real serious. And with our group that we have here, man, those are exactly the kids that I want my kids hanging out with, right? I mean,
no doubt.
That's exactly the most important decision that we can make for our kids. And my belief is just who they are friends with and who they hang around with. But that being said, we just decided to kind of impromptu. I may have watched this game. It's just something I pulled up on YouTube. You may have watched this game. I don't remember anything about this game. It was 11 years ago, but I started watching a little bit of it and immediately had a number of things that I felt we could discuss. And we're posting this again to our DeadThree page, and it will be, circulated and, put on Twitter and things like that. But it's really just, to get your opinion on a number of things and maybe just a discussion on this. This is the Lakers back when they had Kobe. Kobe's right here. LeBron's in Cleveland. I think both, teams are doing really well. I don't know who won it in 2009. I don't know if that was Kobe's year or not. Where were you in 2009? Were you at Central?
Yeah.
So when this starts, this first play, I'm just interested. I love the game of basketball. Let me mute this volume a little bit. I love all this, and I love talking ball. But this is Derek Fisher, I believe, is the point guard. They have Odom and LeBron's here guarding the ball. So do you see a lot of this? And this is all basketball. And what I understand about basketball is basketball, college level, Division II, Division III, NAI, NBA. It's all kind of this. It's just basketball. And they're getting into an action here that I'm guessing you've run a lot, seen a lot, and I'm interested in this. This is like single double stuff, right? They're running Fisher kind of to the rim, and they're essentially going to let him pick and choose. Do you run actions like this with some of your players? And you actually had one of the better players in the nation, the TJ Crockett that played for you in terms of scoring. Did you run him off a lot of single double stuff like this?
You know, we did a little bit, and I was actually just talking with a guy I used to work with at Central, Kevin Gamble, who's now he's an advanced scout with the Toronto Raptors, and I was talking to him last week. We were on spring break, and just talking about what he sees in the NBA now, and this action is one of the things that he talked about, that they call it a lot of floppy action, where you can go single double, same thing, and just talking about being able to kind of put your best player under the basket and let him pick a side and play out of that action is just as initial entry. So it's funny that this is the first clip, because we were just talking about this last week, and ways that, want to try to get TJ more touches, and even some of our other guys, whether it's a shooter coming off the double or whether it's just getting your best player the ball. This was one of the things that he talked about, still seeing a lot in the NBA that guys use a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I actually watch I love watching the NBA. It was one of these things where I didn't really care too much for the NBA. And as I got more into it and just observing it more as a coach, I mean, I watch a lot of the NBA, and just what I get fascinated by on the NBA side of things is how things are defended. If you are a single double here, how do you defend this? I mean, is it kind of pick a side, or do you want to send them? There's a lot to consider here, actually. The things that I would consider and that I really like at a single double action like this is, one, the ball's in the middle of the floor. So it's kind of hard to determine what ball side is and what's not. I'm interested on where Kobe Bryant is at all times, right? So do you force him away from Kobe? Do you force him to Kobe? Do you force him away from a double? Like, if you were kind of game planning this, do you have a strategy on how you want to defend this?
Yeah. I think some of the things with the single double, I think, one, the guy that, the defender, the guy guarding Derek Fisher, I think in this case, I think, what do you want to, what are his strengths? What's he going to do when he comes off of there? But I think the thing that we talk about with our defender is trying to get control of him and make him go one way. Whether you want to make him go off the single or make him go off the double, whatever you want to do there, I think making sure that as the defender, you're trying to stay in control of that offensive guy a little bit. Now, if he starts, if he's faking you and he's jab stepping, he's setting you up and, faking coming off the single and then coming off the double, you're really in trouble. It gets hard to defend that. So I think first and foremost, after you talk about making sure you have some ball pressure here on Kobe, I think then it becomes, that defender, forcing the offensive player to either use the single or use the double, being in control there the best that you can. Ray Allen was incredible at it, and I don't think anybody could force him one way or another. Right. But, fortunately, a lot of guys aren't as good as Ray Allen was at this. But that would be the first thought is to try to force him one way if at all possible.
Now, as he runs this through it, I've watched the first 3 plays of this, so I kind of know what's going to happen. So he's bodying him up, pushing him. He ends up coming off of Kobe's side. Just for, I don't know who's going to wind up watching this. I know our DeadThree group will, which are younger athletes, and we do get into some advanced basketball stuff here. But, LeBron's not looking at the ball, and that's fine, right? I mean, it's all relative. If these were our kids, I mean, I'm not going to critique the best player in the game, but he doesn't really have vision with the ball. And I forget this athlete's name. I forget here. I would probably want to put this guy more on the high side of Kobe, just to play it up a little bit like that. It looks like he's trying to force Fisher out the other side. And here's what I like about how some of these NBA players play is they're not going to fight this pressure. I think Fisher does come out this side here. So, he just makes it easy on himself. He makes it really easy on himself of coming off. But this would be the teaching point, not just for young athletes, but I think for anybody, even at the D2, D1 level, I love how Fisher comes off this thing really tight. Probably a little tighter. There's some air there, but he knows to kind of get that shoulder to that hip right there and be really tight to it. And how do you play these single down screens in terms of defensively, either riding them out here or going over the top and kind of making them fade a little bit? Do you have or is it who you're playing and where the ball is?
Yeah, I think for the majority, I think just to simplify things, the thing that we did this year is we just tried to make sure that we were just chasing the guy off that screen every time, trying to eliminate the thought process of should I chase it, should I shoot the gap, just taking those decisions out. The one thing that we did, we kind of played with it a little bit as the year went on, was, and this kind of gets hard again because, sometimes you can start thinking and then you stop defending. And so we kind of based it on, all right, where's the screen being set? If the screen was being set, let's say, Kobe's 2 steps backwards at about, 12 feet, 15 feet, wherever that might be, then we would want to chase, or we would shoot the gap on that and then force the flare screen sometimes.
Okay.
And if it was lower, we would always, let's say he's down where the defender is, maybe he's got a foot in the paint down there. So if that single or if that pin down was lower, then we would talk about it always chasing that one, giving ourselves a little bit of better angle. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of it, a lot of teams, I say a lot, but probably 4 or 5 teams we played, they ran a ton of motion with these type of actions, these single screens, double screens. And I think just giving yourself one thing that you can really lock in on to try to help you defensively is what we found to work the best for us. Yeah,
I've seen enough and talked with some people about this. You can get into a lot. I really like, I think you used the phrase, hey, you're thinking and not defending, right? You spend your time thinking or defending. I really like that phrase because I know there's like who you're guarding, where the ball is, and where they're screening. Like you start thinking about all that sort of stuff. Like, okay, I'm defending Derek Fisher, or I'm defending Kobe Bryant, and the ball is here. Man, you do a lot of thinking, and instead of maybe just doing one thing really well. And again, for younger players out there watching this, maybe everybody, if he were to curl cut this, if he were to kind of tight curl this into like a mid-range over here, the person that would probably be responsible to, bump him or extend the screen and do some of this stuff would be the person guarding Kobe, which, I think we're going to see as we watch this game a little bit. Man, when you're the elite player and you're setting screens, that puts a lot of pressure on the defense, because if Fisher were to curl this and he had to support it, man, he's supporting and taking his time away from the best player on the floor and the best player in the game, right? And so you'll see here, I think, is this at least the first 3 possessions, the best players on both teams are setting the most screens, which puts pressure on what they're trying to do. So as he does this, I think this play is to catch it out here and to get it into Kobe. And when I watched this earlier and I was thinking about questions for you, I just see a lot in the NBA where they concede a lot of the post catches. Like he's not making the best of effort to keep the ball from Kobe here. He wasn't, if you go back a little bit here and just go back right to here. And when he's just letting them have that position, my perspective on that. And I'm wondering, and I see that a lot in the NBA. Either one, I guess the question would be, do you see that a lot in the NBA? Do you have an opinion on why we see that in the NBA? And would you try to fight this position a little bit more to keep it out of the post here?
Yeah. The thing that we talked about a lot, and I agree with you about the NBA, you just see, it seems like you just see so many catches in that area. And, I think it's a good question that you ask. I don't really have a good answer of why they don't fight it a little bit harder than that, unless it's just, so hard to keep it out of there that,
it is.
My thought is that maybe on the catch, then they really try to lock in defensively, but it's so hard for those guys with their size and their ability just to keep that pass away from it. But, I was surprised. I talked with our staff about this a little bit. At the end of the season, I was a little bit surprised this year as we got into the conference play, and our league was really good. but I was surprised how many teams really threw the ball inside and played out of the low post, played out of the mid post, posted their guards, posted their bigs, and just really threw the ball into those same spots. And I think for us at our level, it was a little bit easier. We did a pretty good job as the year went on of trying to front the low post ups, the deep post on the block. I think that this mid post area is hard because, we would try to hard 3/4 that and got a little bit better at it, but it's hard to defend. And you kind of worry about giving up a backdoor play or some things like that on the overplay. But you see it so much, and it's an interesting point moving forward, not only for, I think, everybody from any age level, but, what are our thoughts going to be, trying to defend that next year if everyone still continues to do that, because you just see so many actions to get the ball there. I was surprised.
Yeah. The one thing that I changed my perspective on as I coached a little bit towards the end of my where I was actually being paid to be a coach, I'm not that anymore, was, I was always this, 1 foot in the paint, and we used the phrase double buried. That is where we wanted our post to be. And we actually had an amazing player, probably the best player that ever played at the college I coached at, who was like 6'7", 6'8", and he was a legitimate Division II player that we had at an NAIA level for 4 years. And he was the best in this mid post area. Yeah. And it always kind of drove us crazy because he wouldn't fight for like the low aggressive post position, when the reality is he was just a stud at that mid post area. Yeah. And that's where we see a lot of this NBA stuff to a certain extent. But to Coach's point here, if this is Kobe, and maybe in the perfect world, he sets that screen, and essentially all he did was a pin down. He turned around and just got the position he wanted to, and the guy's really not fighting him for that spot. And we used to use the phrase, just to move him inch by inch. It'd be better to push him maybe out here, to get him a little bit further out. But Coach mentioned, a 3/4, which would be out here, which would then kind of make Fisher throw this over the top to this position here, which, would be the help over here, right, of moving on the airtime of the ball and trying to get that position. But for young players, what we're going to see here is a feed into Kobe. You're going to see this go into him right here. And then I just love this game, and I say that a lot because it's just fun to watch the subtleties of what they do. Fisher immediately threw it in and took 2 steps away, right, and hoping to drag his player with him. But he stayed wide and beyond NBA, right? Everybody kind of moved away once that ball went in to just drag people away from Kobe. The other thing I want young players to recognize, the ball has not hit the floor yet, other than that feed, right? So, they started the offense. They got the ball into the middle of the floor. There was a pin down. Fisher didn't catch and dribble. Kobe got the position he wanted to. And my belief is probably got the shot he wanted. I mean, that's how good he was, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
So we're there. Now when the ball's in the air, young players, I like it that we're looking to block out on the weak side of the floor from over here, right? Let me ask this. How much time do you spend when you design your practice and you're getting together with your staff? Do you spend on block out rebounding drills on a daily basis?
Not enough.
Not enough?
Not enough. But, we try to do a short segment every day, whether that would be probably 5 minutes max. All right. Just on kind of not necessarily the fundamentals of blocking out, but just, different areas to block out in. We'll do kind of a triangle. We'll start everybody over in the corner and come down the baseline and get a block out, then block out kind of in that free throw line area, then come back from the free throw line area to that other block, and kind of simulate a ball side block out, simulate a middle block out, simulate a weak side block out. And then we talk about the fourth spot is that then you kind of go out and contest a 3, and then talk about rebounding from the 3-point line also, which is totally different in my mind than blocking out at, in the low post area. We don't want to block out at the 3-point line. We talk about, challenging a shot or seeing a shot go out when you're on the perimeter, kind of taking 2 steps to a kind of a breakdown position and being ready to react to the ball off the rim is kind of something that we worked on a lot. And then from that point, I think the thing that we try to do the most is just emphasize, the block out and the rebounding, whether that's just having one coach designated to lock in on that. Everything through practice, whether it's 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5, your main group versus your scout group, whatever it might be, just continually, kind of harping on, so to speak, just the block out and the rebound from both sides. Are you getting your job done defensively, but also on the flip side of that, are you going on the offensive glass too? And I think that, I think that's as
having a rebounding coach.
15,
I remember
20 minutes, unless you're going to do, 15 minutes a day of rebound drills, which,
right.
Sometimes those kind of get out of whack anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great way to do it.
Yeah. And again, I was just a manager. I'm not going to puff up that I had any involvement with Coach Majerus at Utah, but I was there. I took a lot of notes, and I don't remember ever writing down a rebounding drill from Coach Majerus, ever. I don't ever remember seeing one. I don't remember him ever talking about a rebounding drill, but rebounding was emphasized in every drill. And if you didn't rebound, you didn't want to be in that doghouse. And so, I mean, it's one of those things where, and Utah was actually, when he was coaching there, was one of the best rebounding teams in the nation, typically every year. I mean, rebound margin to him was a stat that he looked at every time out, like who's getting my shots and what's our rebound margin. For all the young players here, there's just a lot that it's one thing to watch basketball as a fan. There's another one to watch it as a student. But I love, you spent how much time? Would you ever go to Izzo's practice? Have you ever seen Michigan State practice? I'm guessing you probably no.
Actually, I didn't. I never got down there, and it was one of the things we kind of talked about, and just never got around to doing it.
Yeah, so Izzo runs and was famous. He's famous for having a football mentality with his basketball teams. He would run a drill kind of similar to this. He would have a coach shoot out here. He'd have everybody in the paint, and you would have to go check out, and you'd go pursue the ball. I think he called it his war rebounding drill, and he got kind of famous for that up in Michigan. But he changed my perspective a little bit, and I think you hit on it, is not blocking out necessarily out here, but a check of making sure you're not coming to rebound. Like, hey, I'm going to visually check to make sure you're not coming into offensive rebound. And if you do, I'm going to hit you. But if you're not, like, I don't care. Like, I don't need to go touch you. I don't need to go block you out. I just need to make sure you're not coming in. Yeah. Is that kind of how you look at your guards in terms of how they rebound?
Yeah, and that's what we talk about is the two things. One other thing to add to that, I think, is what you just said is right, making sure that they're not crashing to the glass. But the thing that we try to avoid, and we see it all the time now with whether guys are transfers, junior college transfers, high school guys, just avoiding the guys from the perimeter, just run into the rim. They overrun the rebound, so to speak. They'll see the shot go and they just chase the ball to the rim, and then it bounces off and it's coming over their head. So trying to take away that rim run at the same time, and that's why we talk about just taking kind of a two-step sprint and breaking down into a rebound position somewhere around 10, 12 feet has kind of helped us a little bit. Guys just want to run to the basket all the time as a bad habit. We really try to break.
Right. This is in true coaching form. We're sitting here talking ball, and we're on one clip, and we're like 15 minutes in, and we haven't even made it past the first clip.
It hasn't even gone in the basket yet.
It's perfect, right? But, hey, young players, we got to check out here where he's actually touching them. Gasol. LeBron hasn't that's the first time he's seen the ball this whole defensive possession. But we do have a good contest here on Kobe's shot, like a great contest, right? And as that ball goes up, they get the rebound. Look, they've got four swarming it, and nobody else came in. Nobody fought for a rebound. And that's, that's things people like or don't like about the NBA, but it is what it is. I really like this action because I've seen 3 plays of this. LeBron's here, I believe. I believe that's LeBron. I could be – is that – no, it's number 4. Okay, so, no, LeBron's in the corner. So LeBron's in the corner, and I forget some of these players. This is I don't know what you call this high action where you have double high posts at the elbows. I don't know. I've heard the phrase horns before.
Yeah.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah, or just an elbow series, either one, horns or elbow or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the ball goes into – do you try to keep – like, how do you play how do you play the ball being trying to be entered into the elbow area?
I think the simplest thing that we've talked about is that when you know that's coming, when it's not, it's not in transition, that they're running this set, is just trying to make this catch a little bit further out than their comfort area. Some teams really like to catch it right there on the elbow to execute their plays, and that's where they want their spacing and things like that. I'm not too sure that's always the case in the NBA because they're so good from bigger areas, I think. But I think just trying to make sure that there's a challenge on this catch and making that offensive player have to work to catch that ball and just not be comfortable.
Yeah. There's a phrase that we used to use a lot, route and timing. Every play's got a route and there's a timing that the offense is used to. So if you can kind of change this route a little bit or change the cut or change the timing to it, and push them out a little bit further than what they're used to, any way to be a little bit more disruptive. I love this stuff. I love playing off the elbow, especially with, these really good handlers. I really like, I haven't seen this action too much, but he's entered the ball to the elbow. He's going to screen away for LeBron. LeBron is going to curl cut this, and as he curl cuts it, again, he's receiving this screen. I don't know who's playing him. I want to back. Luke Walton was number 4 for the Lakers. I'm not sure that's Luke Walton or not. I think it might be. But again, here's what I kind of liked about these first 3 plays. The first play had Kobe on a pin down. This has LeBron receiving a down screen, and then he's going to pop. I don't think he pops terribly well. Because maybe they're not even looking to reverse it. But then LeBron is coming and setting this screen on Lamar Odom. And I don't know if Chris Webber ever played here. But there's the screen. Like, this is what I would want every player to see, but definitely the group that I work with. Like, that's a screen. That's a big boy screen.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right? And
no doubt.
Here's the thing, I guess, the question to ask on this. These are hard screens. Who's responsible for – I'm just going to assume this is Weber. It might not be. But who's responsible for this cut, right? It's going to be Luke. Luke's got to give some support unless they're going to switch it.
Yeah. Well, I would think at that point you might be beat so bad that you just have to switch it because
right.
I'm not sure how you ever recover from the position that Odom's in here. But
right. Do you subscribe and teach your kids?
Have to help,
Do you teach your kids and do you teach it in such a way that you kind of tell them, hey, like, being screened's not an excuse. Like, don't come over and tell me you got screened. Like, I'm not buying that. You've got to fight through screens and all that sort of stuff. Do you kind of subscribe to that?
Yeah. I think that what we try to just stress is that, even here, and I don't know what Odom will do here, but obviously he's beat at this point because he's really, LeBron set a great screen on him. But what's his fight going to be to try to correct it? Was he going to try to get over the top of it? Is he going to roll underneath it? What is just don't die on it right here and give up on the play because you got a good screen. That would be, at that point, that would be what we were going to look at is, they did a nice job offensively, but how hard did you fight to try to recover from that?
Right. And so, yeah, he's in a bad spot right here. And I actually don't remember what happens here, but that's for everybody watching. That's when we talk about screening and we talk about getting your feet wider than theirs and putting, the hit on them and making them feel it. That will get him open. It puts Luke Walton in a bad spot right now because essentially one guy's not competing. I hate to kind of call like it, but one guy could have done a better job. Lamar Odom could have done a better job of cutting this and maybe making him, back cut it into this help here by Kobe. But now he's cutting ball side where you got to pick up that, which essentially is because of the way he's playing, he's putting Luke Walton in a bad spot because now Luke Walton's got to help off the best player on the floor or the second best player on the floor. And I don't know how so right there. Right, it's actually really good. I love being able to watch this because he's about to pop, and they're both confused about who's picking up Weber.
Yeah.
Right, and they ended up not switching it. So as they kind of roll this through, there's the curl cut, there's the great screen, and man, I don't know if that's a great cut or not, but it's not a cut to the basket, right? It's a cut to a spot on the floor, right? As opposed to – like he wasn't really cutting to score. I think he was cutting to make sure LeBron got the ball at the top of the key.
Yep.
But because of the support, he's really he's in a bad spot right there.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
he's behind the whole play. Yeah.
Right. And it all started with this, and it's something that as I was watching this before we went online, your perspective on, did you run a lot of motion? Or are you more of a set guy? How do you kind of get things flowing offensively?
We play, we try to play a lot out of transition, and then, we run a lot of ball screen action. So, we got into some, about 3 or 4 sets that we really liked, probably the second half of the conference season. So if our ball screen action, whether it was high ball screen or side pick and roll, whether we weren't getting much out of it, or our teams were doing a good job defensively, we would go to about 2 or 3 sets that I wouldn't necessarily call them quick hitters, but they gave us some movement. They gave us some spacing, kind of like a play like this that, I'm not sure that's necessarily what I would necessarily call a quick hitter, but what you saw was a lot of offensive action there. They had to communicate 2 screens. Then they've got to communicate how they're going to guard this handoff with LeBron. That's a lot of action for a defense to have to talk through and cover. And so I like those type of actions more than, just like I said, just a quick hit set that you're just going to set a couple screens and try to get a shot. So, if we got into set plays, it would be stuff similar to this,
Yeah. What I like about this, and I like it in the first 2 plays, and I do think it happens actually the third play as well, is we have the best player on both teams setting screens, right?
Yeah.
And realizing that if I get you open, if I really work hard on this screen and set a good screen, and the better screen, the better, and do something to get you open, they're in such a bad spot to have to support and help off that I'll get this sort of space, right?
Yeah.
I mean that's a 6-foot gap, 6 to 8 foot gap with the best player in the game at the, getting that shot. Right. And he actually got it off slow there. And there's so many great things about this. Right. I just really like that, it freezes Gasol. He's probably going to pop. I don't know if there's a roll. I think Kobe's probably picking it up. Everybody's kind of cycling up to get defense moving. But even at this point, we haven't seen the ball on the floor a whole heck of a lot.
Right.
And the ball's just been able to be changed because of some good screens. And, and getting both plays, they got the best player on both teams early shots. And, here we go again. We got a big guy getting back. Maybe how do you balance the floor on shots? Do you always say, hey, if you're my point guard, which he was the one that brought it up the floor, like you better be getting your tail back? Is it the guy that's at the top of the screen? If this were your group, would you want him crashing? You want him cycling back? You want the point guard getting back? Like all these guys are funneling back. They really have no rebounders that I can see. He's not rebounding. He just happens to be low. Like, what do you teach your guys?
Yeah, we're pretty generic, and it's actually something we're going to talk about kind of in off season as a staff a little bit of what can we do to change, what we do from an offensive standpoint back to defensive transition, because I think in reality we've just always talked about, the one's got to get back. We want the 2-man to go to the top of the key, 3-point line area for anything long, and then the 3, 4, and 5 trying to crash early. But I think the more that you look at it, did I lose you there? You still there?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. I think the more that you look at it, though, what's the value, for example, of 11 here at the top of the key, really, really trying to run and crash in there? What would be the value of, 3 out here if he takes off and crashes in there? Can you get there on time? Can you really get the rebound versus just getting back and getting your defensive set? I think it's definitely something that more and more people are looking into and probably changing the way that, that people are doing those things.
Yeah. So it's one of those, hey, would you rather get the rebound 1, 2 out of 10 times, or would you rather get your defense set 10 out of 10 times?
Right. Exactly.
That sort of thing. Right. Because right now we've had 2 possessions without any real intensity to go get the ball on either end. So we get that. This was something, now there's a set here. So I think this is, and so I'm going to position this question to you where it's not necessarily a set, but in transition, I see a lot in the NBA, or a fair amount in the NBA. And I've always taught it this way, and I might be the one doing it wrong, but I've always kind of taught our point guards to get the ball to the middle of the floor, especially in transition, give yourself some lanes, let people run. But there seems to be a time where the ball is right there, sideline, sideline, and maybe it's just to reverse the ball here with a trailing big. Do you have what do you teach your point guards? Either, he's running a set here, but in transition, you try to get your point guards middle of the floor. Do you have a time where it's okay, where you don't get after them, where the ball's sideline in a channel?
Well, we try to get the outlet, and then we try to, if we get it, let's say we get it on the right side, we want to drive it up that right side, and then somewhere around half court, as we kind of see what's in front of us and see how the floor opens up, we usually like to change sides of the floor with it, whether that's the dribble or let's say that the trail man was up there already, whatever your situation might have been. But majority of the time it would be the point guard driving it up that right side, and then somewhere around half court kind of changing direction and getting it over to the left side of the floor and playing from there.
I don't know if you can see my mouse pointer here, but you're saying you get the ball on this side of the floor outlet, which I think is, to kind of clear, there's too much in the middle of the floor. There's all these bigs. There's people running back in transition, all this sort of garbage. But we're going to release it ball side, wing, or 45. But you'll even bring it up more sideline. And then when you get around this area, that's where you're looking to really either change the floor with either a transition ball screen, a pass to a trailing big, or just bring it off the dribble, right, to get it to the other side. Yeah,
and I think primarily – can you get to half court and maybe make a change of pace or really make a burst at that point to try to go make a play? Yeah.
Okay.
And if it's not there, then we just bounce it out to the other side of the floor. And like I said, a lot of the things that we do at that point would either be swing it back through the trail man, or we just call for a ball screen and kind of initiate our half court offense.
Perfect. Okay. Love it. So this is probably more of a set. This is a quick set. It's one of these things. I love this game so much, and don't let young players that are looking at this right now. The NBA basketball is basketball. He is going to set. Kobe is going to set his second screen. The two best players in the game are just setting screens to start this game. And Fisher's bringing the ball up left wing, and when he comes up, it's one of these things. And when I was watching this is when I ended up texting you right after this play, because this is just a simple back screen that Kobe's setting right here. Like, it's simple. They've got a guy in the corner. They're posting a guy up like mid post, like really out there, almost to the college three, and which essentially it may be by design, but they're essentially freeing up all this area here. So the question is, I was interested in your perspective on this just because of the best player on the floor setting a back screen. Right, it's such a hard action to defend, even though it's a simple action. Right, the simple is difficult kind of a mindset. So he just sets a back screen, and you just can't leave Kobe. It's one of those things. Like, what do you do here? Like what? I guess that's the question. What do you do here? Like, they're about to get a layup, but when the best player on the floor is setting these types of screens, you've got to support it, right? Even though he's the best player, right?
Yeah. No doubt. And I think that, the big difference is that, the NBA, their matchups are just so different. And the thing that we can kind of get away with a lot, I think, at our level, at Division II levels, we can just switch so much.
Gotcha.
Where, they're not going to be able to switch, their 5 onto Kobe on this back screen probably. That probably won't work out too well for them. But I think, that initial is just such a quick hit, I think, out of the triangle here that, you can see that I just think that in my mind that Cleveland's just not really ready for it, So, if the guy guarding Kobe stays and kind of helps on the lob, he's going to get beat because it's Kobe. And like I said, if they switch it, now you've got the 5 on Kobe, and that's not probably going to work very well. So, but I think your point is really, really right, is that it's such a simple play, but yet so hard to guard, and you get so many options out of it. That's what's kind of intriguing to me about just a simple transition back screen is, there's 3 or 4 things you can do out of it depending on what the defense does.
Yeah, these last 2 possessions have me thinking this, and what you just said, it's unfortunate because they're about to get a layup. But the play before this, LeBron hits a shot because he sets a good screen. But we also both acknowledge the fact that Lamar Odom probably wasn't playing as hard as he should have been. I forget this player's name, but he's clearly not playing as hard as he should be. And because we had the 2 bigs not playing as hard as they could, it makes Luke Walton on the other end look bad, and this guy's about to look bad. All because you're just not competing. Like, it's one of these things, like everybody's got to be competing every single time because this guy's going to look bad. There's no other way around. I mean, he's going to be here. They're throwing it over the top. He's showing a little bit here, but we're not competing, and it's just thrown over the top, right? And there's nothing they can do about it. But because he wasn't ready to play and Lamar wasn't ready to play on the other end, they just look bad, right? And you just can't get screened, and you got to fight through all that stuff. So they end up getting the layup here, or the dunk. And this is great. I love this stuff. But they're both looking at each other here. They're like, what are you doing? Why aren't you helping me? They're both looking at each other saying, we just threw a lob dunk. We're 45 seconds into the game.
First play of the game, second play of the game.
Right? And they're both looking at each other going, man, you got to help me. And he's looking at him saying, man, you can't get screened. I'm guarding Kobe. Right? Yeah. But what I like, again, I've said this a few times. I mean, we have the best players in the game setting screens. Right. And that frees a lot of people up, and it puts a lot of pressure on the defense to have to guard some of this stuff. So they are bringing it up. Now this is where I haven't seen it. So now they're back in the same little horns action that they were in. It goes to the same spot. There's your screen again. I don't know if it's the same. So there's your curl cut again. Now, Lamar looks a little bit more ready to play, right? If they know it's going to come. Now, they switched it this time. So I wonder if that was by design. I wonder if they put Kobe on LeBron now. So Luke was on him before. So now they switched it. And it was off a dead ball. Not a dead ball, but a ball that was being inbounded. So I wonder if they communicated that. I wonder why they switched that. I mean, these are the things that I like trying to figure out. I mean, because they had time to have Luke be on him. Right? But there's our screen again. And Lamar's still getting screened, but they are clearly not looking for 4. But now, total different perspective, right? Look at how Kobe's playing him.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. So you have more of the competitor, the guy that is a great defender. I don't know if he was ever a first team or second team all defensive guy, but he wasn't going to let LeBron get that same look, right? I wonder if that was the switch, right? It took one play for Luke to guard him before. So here's for young players. I mean, do you have it's kind of scouting report defense, right? Where you like, hey, we want you in help unless you're guarding Kobe Bryant. If you're on Kobe Bryant, you're on his body. Like Kobe's totally muscling him up and trying to take him off his cut. Is that kind of a strategy that you all have? Like, hey, we're going to be physical with this guy. We've got to stay on his body. We're not letting him get to screens. We're not letting him get dribble handoffs. Is that something that you come up with as you scout and go through your league?
Yeah. I think situationally for sure. Especially if you're talking about guys that you're going to help off of, or maybe not help off shooters, things like that. But I think in these situations, and we'll see a lot of dribble handoffs more and more. I think that's just kind of the part of your scouting report, so to speak, that I think that, again, it's kind of, what's the one thing that we're going to do on dribble handoffs to try to take you out of it if you're running a lot. And obviously, in this situation, the first 2 plays of the game, Cleveland's kind of run the same play to, get LeBron off this handoff. So obviously it's an important play for him. So what we would look at is, what can we do on that? Again, can we switch it? Do we need to ride over the top of that to try to blow the hand up or the handoff up? Can we slide under the handoff? I think, probably in this situation, if it was the other team's best player, we would try to fight through that the whole way, try to jam between, LeBron and the handoff to see if we can force it out further or totally take it away. But yeah, we would get real specific at this point, I think, of what we could try to do to slow this down.
Yeah. See, I've heard people say that they play dribble handoffs very similar, if not the same, on how they just kind of do ball screen stuff. So it's real simple and all that. And we haven't seen any ball screen, although there's a lot of it in the NBA. Do you try to play ball screen the same? Do you try to mix it up on where on the floor the ball screen is set and all that, or do you just try to play it one way and just do it well?
We ended up this year just basically, I guess we played it 2 ways. We would either switch it or we would kind of two slide, hedge it is kind of what we called it. We called it a white, but basically our 4 or 5 man would just go 2 slides with the ball handler and then retreat back to his man. We would trust that the original on-ball defender was coming back, getting over top of the screen. And our guards did a really good job this year, I thought, of getting over top of ball screens, something that, in all honesty, I think is getting harder and harder for guys to do, to be honest with you, for guys to want to do. There's some toughness involved with getting over the top of that ball screen. And our guys did a good job with it, so it helped us a lot. But I think for us, I think primarily we were going to switch the ball screens 1 through 4. So our 4-man could even switch a lot of the times. And then with our 5-man, we would kind of wide it, or like I say, 2 slide, 2 slide with the dribbler. But the on-ball defender, we were always primarily going over the top. And, there were maybe a couple instances where we tried to go under it just because we didn't think that, the offensive player was going to shoot it or was that much of a threat. The action was for other people. And that's kind of what we stay consistent with.
And if they were to turn the corner, you just got after it. It's the guy hedging, right? I mean, if he's going to he's got to protect. It's a 2 dribble. That's what I heard you say. It was a 2 dribble protect. Hey, we're going to stay with you for 2, and you better be able to go over the top and cut them off and recover. Yeah. Because I'm only staying for 2, and I've got to get back, right? Yeah. So I want all the young players, that are watching this, and I'm just going to take this perspective, and I could be absolutely wrong. They've run 1 play. This is their 2nd play. The first play they ran the same action. Luke Walton didn't. You could say he defended it well, or he didn't defend it as well as Kobe's defending it. And Kobe had enough after 1 play. That's the perspective I'm going to take. Kobe said, you know what? I'm going to take LeBron because I'm not letting him get these shots. I'm not letting him get loose. I'm not letting him catch his rhythm. And it's a totally different play now. And I have no idea what happens here. He could get, he could back cut him, get a lob dunk. I just know that this is this is what people loved about Kobe. That's the perspective I'm going to take. He was like, man, he's not getting that shot, and I'll make sure of it. So he's bodying him up, and he's going to at least make him earn it, right? But that when we talked about, we stopped at the same spot a possession ago, and there was an 8-foot gap. Now there's a man gap.
No doubt.
And he's going to make this a lot harder. And but look at how tight LeBron gets to get that handoff. But he's still fighting over the top. And this is kind of your 2-step protect. But there's also that ball side protection right there by Fisher. And I just love how it's all kind of built together, right? He's still in support. He's still in support.
Still there. Yeah.
Everybody's there protecting off this, and they weren't going to let him get it twice. But totally different play with the contact. It's the same play, but totally handled different just by Kobe's competing, right? And I think young players, if you're watching that, saying, man, you want to know what the Mamba mentality is. That's where I see it right there. I'm like, it's not happening.
That's a good example. No doubt.
Right.
No doubt.
And I'm willing to bet he made that change. So he's here, right? I'd rather get that foul. I guess you don't want your best player, a minute 9 into it to be getting a foul. But you know what? He's definitely setting the tone on how this game's going to go.
He was going to challenge him. Yeah, he was going to challenge him for 1 possession. But I think that, in general, that from our kids' age group all the way up, you want to see guys, be competitive against other teams' best players. And there's a learning process to that. And I think that, I think Kobe's probably fine with that foul right there. Obviously, you don't necessarily want it if the time and score is different later in the game, but at the same time, I think your point is right that he was going to challenge him on this possession and not give him an easy basket that they gave him, and probably in his mind put a little thought in LeBron's mind that I'm here and we're going to get after it for 4 quarters.
Right. Yeah. What's your this is all just even stuff that I'm teaching 8-9-year-olds with my little basketball group, and I know you have to teach it at the college level. But how do you teach, and what are you kind of working with your groups about defensively when it comes to allowing them to change the floor? You could say a number of things here, Kobe's making them use his left hand. I take the perspective of these are the premier basketball players in the world, and everything is thought out and everything has a reason, and they don't leave anything to chance. My perspective is Kobe Bryant is playing them this way for a reason. It's not just, he
Yeah.
wants him either using his left. He wants to push him into the help of the 5 and this side of the floor. But there's also the perspective of, we've got the ball on one side of the floor and let's keep it on that side. And that's where I kind of go back and forth a little bit. What do you teach your team in terms of where to push the ball, allowing them the ball reversal with the pass or dribble, or keeping it on one side?
Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of go back and forth a little bit, and I think for us it changes a little bit, or can change some with how your roster changes, and the personnel that you have. We spent a lot of time this year just kind of deciding that we were going to kind of close out on the high side and try to force you down towards the baseline.
Mm-hmm.
But even when you do that, I think you have to be careful, because that closeout can get too high, and now you're giving up straight line drives. And so as the year evolved for us, we kind of kept our same principles, because I think once you get set in that, it's kind of hard to change it, at some point. But at the end of the day, we just talked a lot about almost, at the top of the key, we were always shoulder to shoulder. We weren't going to force one way or another. But anytime we got to the wing, we kind of almost kept the same stance, where we just tried to get on the high side a little bit, to keep the ball out of the middle. But, I just think you find that guys more and more are so good at putting the ball on the floor and being able to drive it left, drive it right, and get creative, that we just talked a lot about, squaring up and staying between your man and the basket. And as simple as that sounds, it's still really hard. But I did think that gave our guys even more direction and saying, all right, we want to force it to the baseline,
Right.
Because like I said, I think that sometimes that, those closeouts get bad, and as the ball moves, it gets harder. So in general, just stay between your man and the basket. And if he drives it left, you got responsibility to cut it off. And if he drives it right, you've got responsibility to cut it off.
Yeah.
It didn't affect the way our help defense was set. So it wasn't a huge deal for us that we could just say, hey, guard your man straight up, because our help guys were always in the same spot regardless.
Yeah. The one thing I've taken away from this, that, I'll tuck away, and I still, even though I don't coach for a living anymore, I still take notes on this stuff. It's just kind of, you can't take the coach out of people sometimes. But this, if you look at this image here, for people watching, everybody's, I'd use the phrase flat or something like that, but they're all square to the ball. Like there's no, some people teach this denial stance where we're going to see, your butt to the ball and, a thumb down, and you're in a denial, making sure he doesn't get it. And then there's this open stance. This is my perspective, and you can take, you can kind of twist any of this stuff how you want it to. But what I think they're being taught, my perspective again, is they want LeBron to see people. They want him to see numbers, that like Fisher's number and Walton's number and Gasol's number and Odom's number. Like they want to see bodies, and it's probably easier to slide up and diagonal to the help on the best player they have, as opposed to having to open up and like make all these different types of pivot to cut off that drive. I think they want to say, hey, you got to show your numbers and your eyes and your shoulders to this handler, right? Because he's got to see, like, he's got to go against 5 of you. And I think that's, maybe, but I was interested on, Kobe's playing him that way for a reason. Now, everybody, like my young group, like he's low and ready to play, and he's kind of taking the fight to him a little bit. He's not going to necessarily body him up to get beat that bad, but that's the position, right? Isn't that, that's like textbook position, right? On how to play that, right? And I didn't see what happened there, but it was a baseline. Okay, now Fisher just loses him kind of on this screen from there. It's just a pop, right? Talk about getting your feet set and a 2-step closeout. Boy, that was quick.
Yeah.
Right? So when you talk about – I love this stuff, because this is the stuff you work on. He's just taking Fisher away, and they don't even know it's coming. But look how quick he gets his feet set. He gets beyond the arc. And LeBron's gets it there right where he can shoot it. Like he gets that ball to his shooting pocket right there that fast, where he didn't even have to think about it. Your team, boy, I watched you play a number of times this year, and the best I saw you play was the first half against your first game against Bellarmine, where I think you went 7 of 10, 8 of 10 from 3, but this was it, right? You got the shots. Yeah, now you got the shots you wanted, and you just made them, right? And they were a little slow, but that is kind of how they played you. your threes were that contested. You just happened to knock them down.
Yeah.
Right. But it was like that quick.
Yeah, I thought Bellarmine was one of the best defensive teams we played all year. And they had good size and length, but they did so much to take away the paint, to take away the drives, playing the gaps. So yeah, the kickouts were there, but their recovery time,
right,
their movement and air time was incredible. And if you didn't, that's a good example, because if you weren't ready, you weren't going to get your shot off.
Right.
We did a good job. Like you said, in the first half, we shot it incredible, but guys were ready. And it was just interesting to watch them use their size and length to their advantage, so to speak. And then over time, they get out there a little bit harder, and then they start challenging shots a little bit more, and it gets a little bit harder. And
right.
But yeah, it was a good half. It was a good game. Yeah,
that was a good game. But for all players kind of watching, I really like this because, I mean, even though this is a subtle, it's, he's just kind of moving to keep Fisher moving, but he's hunting for a shot. I don't know who that is, but I mean, you can't really see him, but he's putting his hips lower. He's creating space. He's kind of seeing how Fisher's reading him. And this is one of those things. This is, it's a tough shot for a college player, but for a pro, you're paid to knock that shot down. He's the three, he's contested, but you got to make that shot. Right. Yeah. So, and Fisher's right there. I don't know what else you can do. Fisher's right there, but here they get the steal on the inbound. Foot's on the line. Good. There's the rebound. Now we'll go through another series, Joe. I know we've gone, but there's what we were talking about earlier about the fast breaks up the sidelines. I've always kind of been this guy of getting to the middle of the floor. They're probably real fortunate that I bet you most people for this Lakers team can bring the ball in transition.
Right.
Do you have, what are your rules? What do you do with your group in terms of who is and is not allowed to bring the ball up the floor? Is it 1 through 3? Is it only your point guard? Is it your 1 or 2? Or is it kind of a feel for the game on where you're at?
I think it kind of depends, kind of personnel-wise a little bit. Primarily we like to get to the point guard. But, we had some guys that, if they rebounded it on the move, so to speak, they were good enough to push the ball up the floor. So we had some flexibility with who could bring it. But I think for the most part, just, from a standstill rebound, where you're not chasing it or it's not a long board, we would ideally just like to have it to the point guard. But I think it's a bonus to be able to have guys that, if they do rebound and, say they take that 2 dribble escape to get out of traffic and they can continue to push it. We probably had some guys that could do that and we were comfortable with. Yeah.
So, I mean, those are nice luxuries to have when you've got, you always sit there and want the perfect storm with it, like a dominant post player and 4 guys that can shoot 40% from 3 and 4 guys that can bring it in transition. Right. And that's kind of but we'll make this our last play because I know that I actually probably have to get back to work here in a little bit, but I talk ball all day. But here's one of these things that I really like, and I don't know how this play ends up, but I like the fact that, and this is what we try to teach our guards, a play against momentum. Great guards know how to play against momentum. And I figured out that I'm guessing number 2, now that I've kind of seen at least his jump shot, that's Kyrie, I'm guessing. So they inbound it here. There's the steal. Maybe that's Kyrie. I think it is. But he gets the shot. Is it Mo Williams? Okay.
Yeah.
So Mo Williams, but here's what I like about what he does. Momentum on 4 is going this direction. Great guards, and actually your son does a great job of this. And coaches talk about changing direction, change pace, change direction, all that sort of stuff. But here's the change of direction. He's going down this left lane, and 4's going this direction, and it's just a simple crossover. But he is changing the momentum of this player to sprint, to stop him in transition, and to just change the momentum and change direction while his momentum still goes this way is probably going to allow him the opportunity to get to the heart of the defense with Fisher, a very good 3, probably spotting up. This guy's going to have to support. If that's Mo Williams, he's going to have to support that drive, right? Yep. And LeBron's in a position to support nobody. He really, I mean, you know what I mean? He's just really not right here. And I don't know what happens, but there's the change of direction. And, man, if he were just a little bit further over, and he changes it twice on him. I love this stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, there's good basketball. Change of direction. I mean, this is everything we're doing with our kids this offseason, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, it is. Like, set a cone down there, beat them off this dribble.
Yep.
Do it between the legs there, get to the rim, finish left, right? That is all of it.
Yeah.
Right? And no support there.
Yeah, and a lot of options. Like you said, if Fisher can stop at some point and probably be wide open, and they get a good angle for a kick out, and then he reads it. And yeah, I mean, I think you could watch whatever you watch on a daily basis of social media, and you would see that exactly. You're exactly right. There'd be a cone at three-quarter court. There'd be a cone here at the elbow, and I think you would watch kids and trainers put kids through that exact same thing all day long if you want to find it.
Yep. And so for my group that has been with me for a couple of years now, where we use the phrase drop. Lamar Odom here is on a drop. He is, and if you look at it, and this is how I choose to look at it, he's got both feet in the air, and when he drops that ball between his legs, he's going to have his hips and he's going to have his toes pointed this direction. Now, from a coaching standpoint, this would irritate me this would irritate any coach, that we let Lamar get the rebound at one end of the floor, dribble the length of the floor, and get to the rim, and essentially beat five. LeBron was in no position to support. He got beat with his momentum, and we have two people here. Now, he's in a bad spot because he's guarding Kobe, right? And if he were to go help, then Mo Williams has got to be the one to support that, to help the helper we talk about. But this is one of those things where you get a quick timeout if this goes on long enough, because you let that guy go the length of the floor, make a whole bunch of dribble moves like a mixtape, and get to the rim.
Yeah.
Against five guys. Right? Man, that would just irritate you, right?
Especially the plays, like you said. I think like you said, when you have all five back, I mean, basically even LeBron is back, and I mean, he's kind of, the initial break is over, and right there, they're all back, and he still gets to the rim. Those are the ones that drive you crazy.
Who are you talking to? So let's say you called a timeout here. Who are you talking to, and what are you saying?
Well, one of the plays that, and it's really hard, and I think, I mean, if you've talked about it too, and if you look at LeBron, like not being level of the ball just drives me crazy. And so
you're suggesting he needs to be right in here where he.
Ideally that's what we would talk if this was our team right now. Whoever this was for us, whoever our LeBron was right there in that spot, we would talk about you should have been inside the 3-point line, and then you primarily may have taken that drive away. If you're over here on Kobe and your rule was that you weren't going to help off of them, then you kind of did your job. And then it kind of maybe goes back a little bit to the on-ball defender, I think, because, Mo Williams kind of can only do so much here in this spot. So I think for us primarily in those situations, it would have been LeBron not being ball level, and then how good did we play on the ball defense once he, once Odom slows down and kind of lets us get set, so.
Yeah. And there's a lot in this play. I really like that. When you said that, I wanted to see this. So when that shot goes up, they steal the inbounds here. So, right, Lamar's just not. So we're really busting up Lamar in this. I feel bad for the guy, right? I mean, he's not defending any screens, right? And he's letting LeBron get the shots. Now he inbounds the ball here, and I think Williams is just going to step in and get a hand on it. We're going to get an open three here, okay? But now here's this. I'm just interested in, it is kind of just this jog back and I'm not busting, and LeBron's the best, and I actually put him right up there as the third best player in the game to have played the game. But there is this kind of slow urgency to it, right? But he's also probably thinking there's no way Lamar's getting to the rim against us, but he did.
Right.
But to this, and we'll kind of wrap it up with this, Coach, but I like your perspective. We get to the level of the ball here. He's not going to leave Kobe. And for me on the timeout or in the film session the next day, I'm talking about level of the ball, keeping the ball on one side of the floor and not getting turned around. But if you get beat, it's this help and it's that help to Gasol, right? If we could all kind of be together. Lamar's the reason Lamar doesn't get to the middle of the floor. He makes his own decision here, even though he has it kind of. But it's that help there. I think it's the help by 11 here and seeing if he was able to step over. But you just can't have plays to the rim. You make him make the extra pass and all that. So, I mean, we went through 2.5 minutes, right? We got 45. I love it, man. I just love talking ball, and I appreciate what you're, what you're trying to do with your team. But the reality is this, isn't it? Basketball is basketball. You're working with 18 to 22, 23-year-olds and teaching the same stuff, the same perspective, vision, and keeping the ball on one side of the floor and playing against momentum and how you're playing mid post. And I'm doing the same thing with 10-year-olds, with your son and my son.
Yeah, I think, and you're right, it's basketball at every level. And, it's funny because you say, boy, we're really picking on Lamar Odom there, but we've all got Lamar Odom, and we've all got, LeBron not level of the ball, or we've all got somebody that we're going to defend and not help off of. So, you just have to just change the players and the names, and and at every level you're coaching the same thing. You're coaching the effort, you're coaching the spacing and the details. It just doesn't change much. It's not that, who are we to criticize NBA guys? We're not. We're just talking basketball, and those plays go on at every level.
Yeah. The last thing on this play that I want our group to really look at is, we've talked about this for years, but the spacing that Fisher has here. If Lamar were to stay with his right hand and drive it in here, he's pressuring this guy here. And if Fisher stays in line of vision and still stays spaced, we're talking about a 3-4 step closeout to a very good three. I don't know Fisher's stats, but I know he can shoot it and has hit some game winners. So that's the play there, right? But it's all about the coach's point. Man, this game is really a lot about spacing, and putting pressure on the defense with the drive and making them have to make decisions. Coach, as we wrap up, I'd love to do this again, man. I'll tell you what.
I would too.
We all need time to we're all cooped up. We're all looking for things to do. But with this, pandemic and the virus going around and things that we're all kind of dealing with now, how did you leave your team? What was and I run a podcast, and we talk a lot about leadership and things like that. And I do think with the state that we're in right now, whatever teams we're running, we need to be leading them. How did you lead your team? What was the message you sent to them as you kind of split up and went your ways?
It was strange because we had the majority of our exit meetings or our postseason meetings, and then guys were going on spring break, so we were kind of under the assumption that everybody was coming back. So the majority of our team was gone for spring break, and then everything kind of hit, and it was, hey, encourage your guys not to come back to campus. We're going to online classes, so we really never got to have kind of our final group discussion. We've talked to guys on the phone and done some FaceTime stuff, but the thing that we talked about in our individual meetings was, I think the things that you have to do, whether you're a coach or a player, and that's, go back and evaluate yourself. What were the things that you liked that you did? What were the things that you want to work on? And the biggest thing for us and our team is, we've got a handful of guys that are going to be seniors that I think are in a unique situation. And what we challenged them to do is really try to get better in 1 year. I think a lot of times when that junior year ends and you're heading into your senior year, I'm not too sure how much room for improvement is always there, if that makes sense. Sometimes you kind of are what you are by that point. But I thought for us, in the first year of a new system, a new style of play, I thought that all of our guys that return have a chance to really get a lot better now that they have a really good comfort level of kind of what we do offensively. And so that was the challenge that we had kind of talked to our guys about individually as we were heading into spring break, and what we were planning on working on when we came back with our postseason workout stuff was, hey, maximizing all of your time to really try to get a lot better for one more year. Yeah.
Somebody said something in coaching about experience. There's the experience of, hey, I'm a junior or senior, and kind of knowing these plays and knowing what you're going to call and knowing what you want and expectation and the culture you're building and all that. But then there's also the experience of being together, of like, hey, we've done this. So there's kind of the two levels of experience with all that. The one thing I guess I'll acknowledge you for that I really liked. It was a rough first year. I don't remember the exact record you had. And I know you went through kind of a spell there, probably around 60% through your season. You kind of went through a rough spot. But I follow you on all the social platforms, and, I see you at all these games and all that. But what I really appreciated was how you just continued to build your team up. like them mentally. Like, you know, if you've gone 6, 7, 8 games where you've had these close games and you're just losing them, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm sure behind closed doors you challenged them and you know, and things of that nature, and showed them what they need to do to get better or why they're losing or why they're doing well. But, you know, publicly from my perspective, I was like, man, he's really building that team up, because you're going to be good. It's a beautiful school, beautiful facilities.
Yeah.
You know, you do an amazing job with them. It's just like a great job. But you just continue to build them up. And I was like, man, they're going to get that thing going. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think that the easy part about that for me was that our guys were always working. You know, losing games is hard for anybody at any level. And, you know, when a losing streak happens, obviously it gets even tougher mentally for guys. But it was easy to build them. It was easy to encourage them. It was easy to push them because they still wanted it. You know, they didn't get wrapped up in, oh man, we've lost 3 in a row, we've lost 4 in a row. They just showed up and they continued to work every day. And we talked about that a lot, you know, as a team. I talked about it a lot, you know, post game and things like that, you know, in the media. But it was the truth. You know, it wasn't a false narrative. I mean, these guys wanted to continue to work, and it paid off for us, I thought, in a small sample, because we end up, you know, we win 3 of our last 4 games at home and to finish the season. And so at the end, I felt like they got, you know, a positive, you know, out of everything that they went through. So it was good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to piggyback on what you said, and then I'll let you go. Cause I know you won't say this. Everything you just said. Yes, I do think there's a culture, there's a vibe, there's the character and quality of the young men you bring in to coach. And they have that. I believe that. But I do think everything you just said is based on the leadership of the coach, of who's in charge, right? If they're going to have that of, hey, we're not going to quit, and all that, I think that comes from the top. I believe that comes from the coach leading that. And so I think that's reflective of how you led them and what you said and how you challenged them and motivated them and continue to inspire them, and all that. I think that's what we're dealing with now with this pandemic, and I'm dealing with it professionally with my teams of adults. Right.
Yeah.
Like, this sucks. We're all working from home. I have 18 people in India, you know, that I'm working with. And it's, you know, I've got to continue to lead and motivate and inspire to get the job done and not let people hang their head. And, you know, we're on a losing streak right now, you know, and we got to keep rolling, man. It's leadership. Right. It's leadership. And it is the character of the people you're leading, which you have as well. So listen, Coach, let's do this again. I really appreciate your time. I love talking ball. And we'll schedule some time. I think we both have a fair amount of time on our hands right now. But everybody, I encourage you to subscribe, I guess, to our DeadThree. And this is where I'll post some things, and we'll look for this on LinkedIn. Not LinkedIn. We'll look for this on Twitter and some of the other social platforms as well. So we'll go from there. Coach, I really appreciate your time. Have a good rest of the day.
Appreciate it. Thank you.